It's been a long road, but we finally have a cast for a new X-Men movie set in the Marvel Cinematic Universe. And it is different from the old X-Men that are going to be in Doomsday. They're like all 50 plus years old. These are young X-Men. They're in their 20s, most of them. So these guys are going to be the X-Men, hopefully for a while. It is people we kind of expected. It is some people that as of until maybe yesterday were not really on people's radar. And we'll just go through them all. We're going to just go through the seven, I guess if you count the guy on the video screen. The 7 people who were cast today as X-Men or X-Men villains in the Marvel Cinematic Universe. Also, my cat Mortimer, currently on the floor. He is protesting because he is upset with one of the actors because of how she interacted with cats in a movie this year. We won't talk about it again, but if you know, you know. We knew this was coming. Right? It had been rumored for a while. Honestly, it seemed like this was going to happen at San Diego Comic-Con, and it didn't. Instead, it happened at D23, like 2 hours into the whole thing, which means I watched all the presentations of how Romeo and Michelle's high school reunion, part 2, much trailers for Coco, bunch of Pixar movies, but eventually we did get to the X-Men. First, Kevin brings out Sadie Sink, and he says, oh, you guys all saw this little movie called Spider-Man Brand New Day, and I can officially say, as he says, this is Sadie Sink from that movie. She's playing Jean Grey. I don't even remember if he said it, but like that was implied. And I think that means, as far as I care now, that is no longer a spoiler. It wasn't a very tight spoiler before, but now I'm like, that is not a spoiler. You cannot be mad if you hear that it's her. And I think as a Jean Grey, she's interesting. This version of the character, without getting into the specifics, very radical. She's very young. She's very angry, which is not traditionally how I feel like Jean Grey starts off. She can go there, but she has a lot of axes to grind from minute one, and that is cool. You know, I like a Jean with some edge. I don't think she needs to be like full Dark Phoenix immediately, but I think there is something interesting about having like an almost like militant Jean. Or now that the movie is over, maybe she's learned her lesson and she's going to come in a little bit cooler and she's going to see all these other mutants that are like, we want to kill everybody. And she's going to be like, maybe not now. We'll think about it. Think it over. Don't make any old men walking in the street. But it's okay because they're fine. The writer said they're fine, so don't worry about it. But it's like Sadie Sink, I think, is a solid Jean Grey. I think she's the right mix of like clearly good actor and also like young star on the rise. I think we did this last time with Sophie Turner, who I also think is a good actor and was also a star on the rise, and then picked her up from the show, put her in the X-Men movies, and it didn't super work, although I don't think those movies really understood what to do with that character. But we're doing it again, and I think this time we do have like one of the standout characters from Stranger Things, like easily one of the ones that people see the most future. Like Sadie Sink, she is going to be a star. I think she's a solid pick for Jean Grey. In no particular order, because I genuinely can't remember what order they were announced. Actually, I think I kind of do. It was Kit Connor next as Cyclops. This is one we knew more or less a couple days ago. I made a whole video about how I felt he would work as Cyclops. I have not changed my opinion on that. I think he'll be a fine Cyclops. Cyclops is supposed to feel somewhat average. Not in the sense of average like a normal guy, but average in terms of like the average of all the people in the X-Men. So, like, he's not the angriest, so he's not the smartest, but he's not the dumbest, he's not the coolest, but he's not the biggest nerd. I'd say he's right in the middle, a lot of that. He's also, obviously, the best leader. You know, he is kind of the prom king. He's the captain of the football team. I think seeing him and Sadie together was cool. We had not seen them together. They look right. I'm with it. I think that's good. I think next we got Samara Weaving as Emma Frost. This was the other person it was like more or less confirmed weeks ago. And I've said my piece. I don't think there's anybody who I've heard talking about this who's not like on board with Samara Weaving Emma Frost. She is clearly, you know, talented. She picks fun roles. She tends to play characters who are like sarcastic, and then she's got a great sneer. I think that's something you want for an Emma, and she obviously just looks like Emma. Importantly, older than the other two, right? Those other two actors that I mentioned, Sadie and Kit, are in their mid-20s. She's in her mid-30s. So that's interesting. Then things got interesting. So we got 3 actors. We're not, I guess one did get leaked earlier today, but we didn't even know that was for real. I don't think we had enough time to process. But we learned that Christopher Abbott is going to be playing Professor X. And God, you know, first we had Patrick Stewart, and then we have James McAvoy. Now another foreigner is going to be playing Professor X. Look at where things have gone. It's a funny joke because the character he plays in the not very good Craven movie is called the Foreigner. It is the other Marvel adjacent role that he can be. So if there is a moment in Secret Wars where the Foreigner meets Professor Xavier, they get to point at each other, go, hey, it's you. And nobody will understand that except for Christopher Abbott, honestly. I don't even think I would notice it in the moment. Christopher Abbott, by the way, from Connecticut, an American, which I like. I like that we have an American Professor Xavier. mostly because Professor Xavier is from America. He is from New York. That big mansion that they live in is where he is from. Now, he did, I believe, in the continuity of the comics, spend time in England. I would say he shouldn't sound like a New Yorker, like that, I'm walking here voice that Spider-Man does when he's on the phone with the cops in those movies. But I think he should have something closer to a transatlantic accent. He's got a very strange way of speaking usually. But because our Professor Xavier is before, and especially, Patrick Stewart, who is still Professor Xavier and is still doing an amazing job, but he is such a specific guy, and he was so perfect for that role, that it did, I feel like, color people's expectations of what Professor X is supposed to look and sound like. And that's just he's not British. He seems British. It makes sense as a British guy, but he is from New York. So I like that we have an American Professor Xavier. Let's talk about Christopher Abbott, though. So I've seen him in a handful of things. I did not watch Girls, which he is on, which he didn't, I don't believe, share any screen time with the other actor who we'll talk about, but isn't that interesting? Obviously, he was in Craven. His role was not good. It wasn't his fault. He was a character who could hypnotize you by counting to 10. Professor Xavier doesn't even need to count to 10, but he has that, experience as playing a guy who can hypnotize you, so that's helpful. So I would say I've seen Christopher Abbott in 2 movies that are the 2 that stand out to me. One, he was in Poor Things. Poor Things was a huge movie a little while back, a couple of years ago when it was a big Oscar darling. He played the original husband of the character played by Emma Stone, and he was bad. He was the bad guy of that movie. We didn't see a lot of him in the movie. I feel like he only shows up later in the game, but I remember liking him in that. We'll probably end up watching that again. I would say my main touchstone for him as an actor, though, and I'm not sure if everybody's seen this. I think I've mentioned it in videos before, probably talking about Margaret Qualley, but it's a movie called Sanctuary. Sanctuary is a movie about a man who is having troubles with confidence and works with a dominatrix played by Margaret Qualley to, kind of change the way he thinks about himself. And it's a very interesting movie. And while she plays a dominatrix and it is a sex, kind of adjacent movie, there's a lot more to it than that. It's very interesting. Her performance is great. It's my favorite performance of hers. And I would imagine it's probably one of the best things I've seen him in. Again, better than Craven. And he's been in a fair amount of things. He was in Testament to Ann Lee last year. Haven't seen it yet. He was in that Wolfman movie, which people didn't like, but I've heard he was good in. Let's connect some things from Poor Things, Sanctuary, high status characters, right? He is someone from money in both movies. He's not necessarily not to be trusted, but he's complicated. He's not someone that you're supposed to immediately trust. He has weird relationships with women. Very controlling in Poor Things, somewhat in Sanctuary. That sounds like Professor X to me. I've seen a lot of people say, oh, does he look bald? I mean, there's pictures of him from before he had long hair where he still has some hair on his head. He looks fine. I think he's got, interestingly, very big kind of brown eyes. That's an interesting face, But I would say my thing with Christopher Abbott is I feel confident that he is good for this role because he just seems like a good actor. Professor X, that said, a couple things. I think he could be kind of malleable. I think we could get a take on Professor X that doesn't feel exactly like Patrick Stewart. Maybe something that is a little bit more morally questionable. Because first 2 movies, Patrick Stewart was very nice and wholesome and, oh, Logan, you come here and give me a hug or whatever. And then by the 3rd movie, it's I'm a jerk. And you're that kind of came out of nowhere, right? That didn't work. And I think McAvoy, you run a similar route, although it does turn a little bit in Days of Future Past. But I would like to start with a Professor X who feels like a guy as opposed to Captain of the Enterprise. So he's born in 86, which makes him 40. I think that is an interesting age because that is around the age of Samara Weaving. We're giving him 15 years on the X-Men. That's good. That's the right age for him, where he feels like he is a generation removed from them, but not that far removed. I think it'll be cool. I think he feels like a good actor. It's a surprising pick, and that also makes me feel pretty confident in it. I don't think he was a lot of people's first choice, but I think he could be really good. Then we got the big one. The big one in terms of the strange one. This was one people were not expecting until they saw her at D23, and then everybody kind of was like, oh, what are we doing here? It was Inde Navarrette, and she's going to be playing Rogue. So I liked her in Obsession. And I liked her in the couple of clips I've seen of the Superman show that she was in. Here's the thing with her, and I think we can kind of look at this in direct contrast to the next actor. So let's look at both of them together. You got Inde Navarrette and you got Maya Boyd. That can't be how it's pronounced. Mia Boyd? Either way, it sounds like when Ivan Vanko says, I want my board. And in my head, I just cannot get over that. But she is playing Storm. Now, I don't know if I've heard this confirmed, but it seems like Coogler maybe wants her in Black Panther 3, and maybe that has something to do with the casting. Like, I wouldn't be surprised if she's not actually in the X-Men movie. I do think it would help. Otherwise, this is looking like quite a white movie. And I think it would be nice because the X-Men is a very diverse group of characters. We just happen to have all the white ones now. But I think it'd be good for the team if it didn't look like we were watching like a Friends reboot. I think it would be helpful for like the message of what's interesting about the X-Men. And to be fair, Feige did say there were other people that were going to be cast in this movie, which makes sense because 7 actors is probably not enough for a movie. I imagine that means we'll get more X-Men. We'll talk about the one character that was missing and maybe not like what happened, but where we go from here. So you got Maya Boyd. She's mostly known for musicals. She was in Merrily We Roll Along, which I haven't seen, and then she was in & Juliet, and I believe she was the lead in & Juliet, or at least one of the leads. I'm not sure, if she started it or how that worked. But like, you've got those 2 actors, right? Inde Navarrette, Maya Boyd. With Maya Boyd, I hear it, I'm like, I don't know who this is. She's playing Storm. There are a lot of names people are throwing around for Storm. The one I'm sure most people heard with Jamie Lawson was like not like a shoe-in for Storm, but people like, oh, it should be a perfect Storm. Because she was in Sinners with Coogler. She's the perfect age for a character to have a relationship with David Johnson, new Black Panther. And like, that's something I think fans have wanted for a while. It would be interesting. So a lot of us were like, oh yeah, that makes sense. And she's a big name. She was in Sinners, she was in the Batman. But then you get Maya Boyd, and it's like, hey, who are you? And that makes me think, at least like me, think, oh, she's gonna be good. Storm is an incredibly popular character. It was an incredibly coveted part, I'm sure. People probably lining up around the block to play Storm, especially in a Ryan Coogler Black Panther movie, assuming that is where she ends up. But like, you can't ask for a better role for someone in that age range if they want to do one of these superhero movies. And then out of everybody, instead of picking a bigger name, someone with more experience in movies, they pick this person who is a singer, seems like she's a very good performer, and like, Broadway people are some of the best. Like, they're so professional. If there's anybody who I think could come in from not being in movies and they'd be like able to just do this easily, I'm like, oh yeah, a Broadway person for sure. So because of that, like, I believe when I see that casting, like, there's no good reason why she's in this role unless she tested incredibly well. On the other hand, you have Inde Navarrette. Now, I think, as we all acknowledged earlier this year, Great in Obsession. It was an enormously popular movie. I don't think she is who anyone would have guessed for Rogue. I don't know who I would have guessed for Rogue, honestly. If the ages didn't change and she didn't get older over time, I really do like Haley Lou Richardson. I think she's probably aged out of what they want for this Rogue now, because Inde Navarrette also in that mid-20s age range with Maya Boyd. But with Inde Navarrette, it's like, she is one of the most popular stars right now, especially right now. Like, after Obsession, it's like, what's she gonna do next? What's her big move going to be? I'm not saying that I don't think she's going to be good in this. See, that's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is, the same way Maya's casting makes me go like, oh, she must be great. That's the only reason they could have cast her. With Inde, it's like, they could have cast her because she is great in this role. Or they also could have cast her because she's just a good actor. She's a very popular actor. She's on the rise. Marvel loves to pick up stars that are on the rise. And I'm not saying that I don't think she'll be a great Rogue. I'm saying I'm not as convinced as I am with pretty much everybody else here, because either she's not already doing, like a Rogue, the same way that Samara Weaving is already pretty much doing Emma Frost in a lot of other movies, and the same way that, like, she isn't such a left field pick that I'm immediately like, they nailed it. She's perfect for it. And there were rumors that it seems like they were down to a couple people. It was Kaylee Spaney and Inde Navarrette. I think they're both very different actors. Kaylee Spaney, I would say, known for playing characters who are maybe smaller, even though Inde Navarrette is also tiny, like 5 foot tall, but like, not huge personalities. They sometimes did big things, like in Civil War, or, maybe near the end of Beef season 2. I've seen actually a fair amount of movies she's in. I watched the Craft movie she was in. They made Craft Legacy or something, I think it was what it was called, and she plays one of the witches. That movie is weird, because back when it seemed like Kaylee Spaney was going to be Rogue, I was like, oh, I gotta watch something of hers. Maybe they can convince me. Like, I've seen Civil War, there's a little bit of Rogue maybe in there. She's kind of spunky in that movie, but I was like, well, there's this, right? This is a high school movie where she's young and it looks kind of goth, and I'm like, oh, are we gonna get like goth Rogue? Is that what they're going for with her? That could be interesting. Watch the whole movie. not great. It's very bizarre. I'm not an enormous fan of the craft, but in this movie, the girls do a spell to make He-Man Nicholas Galitzini woke, and then he is killed by the actual villain of the movie. And while the movie looks fine until that point, there's a really weird special effect that they use that I can't get out of my head. Anyway, I've seen her in a lot of things. I think she's very talented. Like, I think she's got a fair amount of range. And that's what I'm not sure about with Inde. And the thing with Inde, too, is Rogue has a lot of range. Like, not that means the actor playing them needs to, but you can do Rogue as they did it in the original movies with Anna Paquin, where she was shy, timid. You can do, like on X-Men Evolution, Goth Rogue, who's confident, but also has a lot of pathos, really angsty, has powers, don't let her touch people. Like, you know, at that distance, it kind of turns her into kind of a counterculture figure. Or you could do X-Men 97 Rogue, the one I think most people are familiar with, who's a Southern Belle with a big personality, who's always saying all kinds of crazy little witticisms or whatever. I think either of those last two are valid. I don't think we need Shy Rogue anymore. But Goth Rogue would be cool, and Southern Belle Rogue would be cool. I think Kaylee probably fit Goth Rogue better. I think Inde might fit like confident Southern Belle Rogue better. I haven't seen her do a Southern accent, but it's not that hard. It's easy enough one to fake. She can just go live there for a couple of years and just pick it up naturally. But I think Inde's casting suggests that we are going to get a bigger Rogue. And if you look at this cast, right, like the X-Men on this team, Scott, Jean, Storm, Rogue, right? Jean, not all business, but clearly very serious. Like, she's been through it. Scott, I would say, usually kind of a leader, kind of buttoned up. Storm is like a goddess on kind of another level. And then you got Rogue. And Rogue can be like having fun with this power. She can be like enjoying stealing power from some of these people. You could start her as a bad guy. And then eventually she has to take Captain Marvel's powers so that she gets the power to like fly and all the super strength and stuff. Like, you have options for her. But I do think like charming Southern Belle Rogue is a personality that does not exist on that team as it exists now. Now, there's other characters you could add to this team. And I think we'll get two. These are the two that I'm guessing we'll get. And then we'll talk about the villain. I think we will get a Beast. I think the fact that Charles Welton seemed like he was in talks based on what he said the other day means Beast is part of this conversation. And if he's out, then Peter Claffey's probably Beast, and that's great because I like him. I mean, not he is Beast, but he seems like one of the actors that was also in talks, and if he wants to do it, that'd be cool. I think we also need someone like Nightcrawler, who is both looks weird, because Beast can look weird, but he doesn't need to. Like, Scott looks weird because he has the stupid visor and the glasses, but like, yeah, as people pointed out, like Daredevil also dresses like that, and he doesn't have optic blasts that he's holding back, so, you know, it's not that unusual in this world. I think it's too early for Gambit. I think you could do Bobby or Warren, but I think the thing with Nightcrawler that's very specific to him and not a lot of other original X-Men mutants is he just looks weird all the time. Like, I guess you can get around it if you have like the Image Inducer or something. And I like this in Apocalypse, X-Men Apocalypse, that we had one mutant who was just a blue guy. Like, I want them to have a point in the movie where a character points at him and says, "You call this thing human." Like, and you can't only do that with Nightcrawler, but that is what he's for. Like, he's perfect for that. And, you know, I like the sword fighting, I like the swashbuckling. I would personally be cool with maybe toning down the Catholicism to the point where it's not like his only trait, where he is maybe having a little more fun, where he's being a little flirty. I like both sides of Kurt. I think in the cartoon, it's gone very one direction. I think in the comics, it's a little bit more balanced, and I hope we get a little bit more of that. But yeah, I wouldn't be surprised to see those two. Also, because we have 3 women on the team right now, not counting Emma Frost, who I think will be a teacher or something. I think we may do something, and a lot of people have said this is going to be Ultimate Emma Frost, where she starts off like as a contemporary of Charles's who starts her own school. I think that could be possible. But like, we have 3 women, 1 guy, and listen, I'm sure Cyclops isn't complaining, but I think we probably do want to balance it out a little bit, but maybe at least 1 more guy, and that could be Beast. And then you have 5 people that fill a lot of different roles. You've got a handful of flyers, you've got your team leader, you've got your wild card in Rogue, you've got your tech guy in Beast. Like, it's an interesting team. And then we got our last guy, last announcement. This person was not there. They did a little bit on camera that did not work. Like, absolutely, whoever is working on bits for these things. First, it was the Deadpool bit from San Diego Comic-Con that also didn't work. Like, this bit had Kevin Feige announces, there's somebody else who can't be here, but he sent a message. Oh, Adam Driver walks out. He's like, hey, I thought we were going to meet up as the X-Men. I figured we would be doing it at the place where we're going to be the X-Men, at the studios, but apparently you're all out there and I'm just here by myself. Oh, well. But I'm excited to be in the movies. I love the movies. And I'm going to be playing. And he kind of gives it a wind-up that makes it seem like there's something up. But he still says the whole name, which is Magneto. Wait a second, that's not it. Nathaniel Milden or whatever. I can't remember what Sinister's name is, but it's the other Sinister name for when he's an American, not Essex. And the crowd erupted before he was done with Magneto. Everybody started clapping, and you could hear the confusion in people's eyes.
Magneto. Wrong again? Right. Even better. Nathaniel Milbury.
And guys, Kevin, whoever's in charge of this, I think the way you do this is how I would do it. How I would tell Adam to do it. I'd have Adam do all the rest of the stuff, because the stuff at Pinewood is fine. I'm sure he's busy filming something else. That's how these work. And then he says, and I'm playing somebody. I can't wait. I'm going to show you who they are right now, because I know who they are. I know all their names. And this guy is, and he looks at an off-screen picture, and he's looking at maybe somebody else, and he's seeing they're mouthing something to him, but we don't see what it is. But we're yeah, it's is that no, it's not Magneto. Is that William No, not William Stryker. Well, you guys, who do you think this is? And then just a picture of Mr. Sinister. And then he says, oh, right, Mr. Sinister. Yeah, I'm that guy. And then that's the end. I think that is a little bit more clear. You just can't pronounce the whole word Magneto, Adam. It doesn't work. Because people will get excited. People are more excited about seeing him than they are about Mr. Sinister, even though the announcement of Mr. Sinister should rule. That is great that we're getting Mr. Sinister in a movie. And I think you'd be a way better Sinister than you would be a Magneto. But yeah, I feel like there was just something off about the energy of that. And there was also this Doomsday thing where Wolverine, as Hugh Jackman was on camera and he was saying something, and Deadpool was coaching him off camera, because obviously they weren't in the same room. But it was are we in Doomsday? And they were I'm not in Doomsday. They're definitely in Doomsday. It's because you don't put that idea in people's heads if you're not going to do it. Maybe they'll actually make it official at New York Comic Con, because this is now it's kind of a running joke where they keep being are we in Doomsday? Please, Kevin, please, please, please. We'll bring this guy. We'll bring Tobey Maguire. We'll bring all these other actors. And then eventually it's fine, all right, you could be in Doomsday. Now we have Deadpool, Wolverine, and Doomsday, and that other guy you said, right? I think that's a bit that could work. But I don't know, man, some weird bits in these presentations. But okay, so Adam Driver, Mr. Sinister, playing Nathaniel Milbury. So he is the American version of Mr. Sinister. Mr. Sinister is the evil geneticist who is obsessed with the X-Men, specifically obsessed with Scott and Jean, which makes sense because they're in this. And he, empowered by Apocalypse, he was a Victorian scientist who discovered the X gene that caused mutations. He's evil, super evil, kind of like an evil vampire man. He's got a big old cape. He's got red eyes. He's got a red diamond on his forehead for some reason. I think this makes sense. I think we expected by this point that Sinister would be the bad guy in this movie. And I think Adam Driver will be able to do a good job. I would have liked him more as Stryker, the Reverend Stryker. I didn't like him as Shaw when there were rumors he was going to be Shaw, so I'm not fine with not that. Sinister's a character you can play a lot of different ways. He can be big, campy. I don't think that's what we'll be going for here. Although I do think we will get a character who is this will be a loud performance. I would say what I'd be hoping for this, I would want it to be someone in the neighborhood of Loki. Something like Loki, maybe something like Mysterio in the Spider-Man movie he's in, Jake Gyllenhaal Mysterio. I want this to be a character who is clearly playing a part. Because Mr. Sinister originally thought he was a good guy, and everybody's no, you're evil. And I want this to be a Mr. Sinister who's you know what? Sure I am. I'm evil. I'm going to put on my big evil cape, and I'm going to do evil experiments because I just want to. And you guys are all so scared of me. Ah, boo, I'm evil. Let me do a big monologue. It doesn't have to be that Joss Whedon kind of ironic version of that. But I think a version of Mr. Sinister who embraces that part of his identity, and by extension becomes very campy and very big, is fun. I don't want him to be that serious. I want him to be serious and scary, and I think Adam Driver can definitely do that. But at the same time, I just don't want him to be one note. I don't want this to be a full Joker, but I kind of want this to feel like something in that nature. you know, a Scarecrow, one of the more out there Batman villains, because he's going to have to be if he wants to contend with this entire team. Now, will they make him like a member of the Hellfire Club? And is that how they introduce Emma? Who knows? Let's talk about the omissions. So no Beast, right? We had been hearing that there was going to be a Beast. It seems like maybe there's an explanation of why. I'm sure we'll find out in the next week or so. No Kitty. At one point, Julia Butters was suggested that she was in the running for Kitty Pryde. Julia Butters is, I'm sure people know her from other things. I mostly know her as the girl from the Tammy Craps commercial, and I Think You Should Leave. And I think she seems good. Like, she was in Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. That's probably what most people know her for. I think she's solid. I do think we'll see a Kitty. I think we'll see someone who is of a younger class than these guys. I wouldn't be surprised if there is like another group, maybe even just brought in at the end of like Iceman, Kitty, Magic, Sunfire, Danny, right? Let's say like that group comes in later. Jubilee can be in that group too. So you got some POV characters there. I don't know who is going to be the POV character of this movie. Maybe it'll be Jean, because she's the one we know the most about. And she'll kind of be looking for these mutants because she can use her telepathy to find them. No Wolverine. Neither Wolverine. So no Hugh Jackman, no Logan, but also no Laura, no X-23, potentially played by Daphne Keane. There were some rumors that she was going to come back as the Wolverine in this universe. I think they should do that. I think she's like perfect for this role. I think she's a great Wolverine. I think they're really lucky. Like, the one thing that's great about her is she's so young. Like, they cast her in Logan when she was, I don't know, like 15 or something. So like, you have an actor who can be Laura for a while and can age, because Laura can age if you want. But like, I think if I was introducing a Laura right now, I'd want somebody who's the age that Daphne Keane is. Yeah, like, she's 21 now, so honestly, she could be part of the second class who shows up later. And like, you can make a whole movie of Wolverine that is just her trying to find the original Wolverine or something. Kind of play it reverse, where like, she knows she's the clone, but she doesn't know of who. And like, maybe Wolverine in that universe is kind of like maybe a historical legend, where it's like, there was this guy who fought in World War II and was kind of a samurai or something, just to get him. And maybe we can recast Wolverine then. I like that there's no Wolverine in this movie, especially that it's not a Logan, but I think it's smart to do one of these without Wolverine. You know, besides that, I'm looking at toys now. No Magneto. That's the other big one. And I think that is also smart. Magneto draws focus. You can introduce him in the second movie and it's just as interesting. And then I guess also no Mystique. Mystique's the other character that I do think we'd heard a lot about casting. There was obviously talking about Hunter Schafer. There's talking about Inde Navarrette. I didn't like either of them because I think Mystique should feel older than the mutants. I think she should be in the same age range as Professor Xavier. As far as I know, I mean, Inde Navarrette's 25. I think Hunter Schafer's also like under 30. Maybe she's not though, honestly. I don't know very much about her. But like, I would want someone who's like much older. Yeah, like 27. So I still think she's like younger than I would want, because I want A, Mystique to be a leader, and B, Mystique to be Nightcrawler and Rogue's adoptive mom. And I know you could say, well, she doesn't age. She always looks the same. Sure, but just a feel older. And I think the way to introduce that visually is to have her look like a 40-year-old. And I don't know who I would want for that, but I think both of those actresses are just too young. But yeah, we have an X-Men now. What do I think happens now? First of all, Sadie is in Secret Wars. We know that. I don't think any of them are in Doomsday. Maybe we see like a shot of them at the very end or something. But for the most part, I don't think we're going to get these guys in Doomsday. But then Secret Wars, like, if you have Sadie, maybe have one or two of the other guys. Like, I wouldn't be surprised if this X-Men movie is about assembling the team and she doesn't know any of them at this point. And I also wouldn't be surprised if she knows Professor X, maybe. If she knows Cyclops. If Cyclops is also in this movie and they meet for the first time in Secret Wars, so that they can be friends in the X-Men movie. I don't think that would be crazy. I don't think we'll see all of them. I think it'd be cool to see all the Professor X's together. I think it'd be cool. Like, that's the thing. I mean, we don't know what Secret Wars is, but this movie comes out in May of 2028. And I know what you're thinking. That's so far away. It's not. It's less than 2 years away. Jake Schreier, I think, is very serious about this movie. And like, I feel like Marvel is very serious about this movie. Feige seems very serious about this. I think they're going to try to get working on it as quickly as possible. I hope they have a great script. If they need anybody to look it over, I'm always free. I mean, I write all of the Marvel movies, so I'm free to write it as well, which I did do. But I'll also look it over. But yeah, I think this starts filming maybe probably not before the end of the year. It's tough because I don't know how the Secret Wars filming is going to work, because I just know so little about that movie. I guess maybe they wait until the beginning of next year to film it, but I hope this movie has time I hope they can take their time, and if it's not looking great or there's problems, they can rework it, right? Because we'd heard something similar about like Thunderbolts. Oh, they don't know what they're doing. They're gonna have to change a bunch of things, and then they did, and then it was good. The same thing kind of for Fantastic Four, although I think Fantastic Four, wasn't as together as maybe Thunderbolts was. But like, I think we've gotten on Marvel's back for like reshoots and the idea of rewrites late in the game. But if done right, they can make a movie really cool. The only thing you need for that is a long runway on a completed movie so that you can start testing it and start looking at it and just seeing like, oh, this scene doesn't work, this thing doesn't work. So I hope they start it up soon. Most famous person in this cast right now, Adam Driver's the most famous. Then it's Sadie Sink. I still think she's a bigger star than Inde Navarrette, even though Inde Navarrette is a big deal. Like, she's a big get. Then Samara Weaving. I'm willing to give it a tie between Christopher Abbott and Kit Connor. I think that depends on the audience. Older audiences probably know Chris Abbott from like girls, stuff like that. Younger audiences probably know Kit Connor from Heartstopper. And obviously weirdos like me know Chris Abbott from Craven. And then way at the end, least famous, Maya Boyd, but maybe the one I'm the most interested in and kind of excited about out of this announcement. I think if you had to rank my excitement, Christopher Abbott, I think could do some really cool things with the Professor. Maya Boyd, because I'm like, what's her deal? Samara Weaving, because she's going to be a great Emma Frost, and I'm very excited about her. Honestly, she could probably switch with Storm. They're interchangeable at this point. Sadie Sink, I want to see where this character goes. Adam Driver, he is a great actor. Inde Navarrette, I'm curious about what this character is, what this version of Rogue is. And then Kit Connor, I think he'll do a good job, but like, I think there are way more questions about the rest of these guys. But that's the X-Men. We have an X-Men cast. It's been years. I've been making videos about casting the X-Men for so long, and none of these guys were in my original cast, and almost like some of them weren't acting when I made my original cast. Like, it would be so weird if I was like, I think Inde Navarrette is probably the person who should play Rogue. You guys would have laughed me right out of town. But as it goes to show you, you're not always right. In Sarah we trust. Sarah Finn, like, she knows what she's doing, and I'm expecting some really cool stuff. We got an X-Men. And last thing, and listen to this bit because it is important, very important to me. I've been talking a while about the Nebula project that I filmed about a year ago, and I finally have an update. We're going to be releasing it as a short film. We're going to premiere it at the Holly Shorts Festival in August 21st of 2026. So less than a month. Then once we're done with all the festivals, whenever we are able to, we will premiere it on Nebula. This is I don't know exactly how long it is, over 20-minute long short film I wrote. YouTube friend Patrick Willems directed, and Dave and Nebula put together an incredible team, like cinematographers, actors, crew, and made a short film that really looks great. It is called Power Trip, and unless you are at one of the festivals where it screens, the first place to watch this short, again, that I wrote, will be on Nebula. Nebula is a subscription streaming platform that I and a bunch of other YouTubers created. I upload all my videos early and ad-free, including this one. This was here on Nebula first. And then, like my short film, there's all kinds of stuff you can only find on Nebula. Patrick has made other short films. Lindsay Ellis makes video essays exclusively for Nebula. If you've watched the channel, you've seen me plug many of them. The show Jet Lag premieres on Nebula. Tom Scott's England series premieres on Nebula. It is an incredible way to support creators, and we are in the home stretch, so you will very soon be able to see the short film that I wrote and Patrick directed on Nebula. And a year of Nebula is already a steal at $60 a year. That's just $5 a month. But if you go to go.nebula.tv/thenandocut, you can get a year of Nebula for just $30. That is $2.50 a month. It is an incredible deal. It's a great way to support me and a bunch of other creators who either you already love or you are about to love. Again, it is go.nebula.tv/thenandocut. Check out all my other stuff. We'll be doing more videos when there's more casting. We'll talk about all the other fun stuff at D23. We got a trailer for the Vision show. We got a trailer for Doomsday that isn't stupid. In fact, is cool. So we'll talk about that. And a lot of interesting X-Men stuff from the cartoon that just wrapped up. So we'll be talking about all of it. Till then, stay safe. I'll see you around.